Welcome to Satellite Stories, where we interview those who have encountered Jesus through video games and nerd culture. We're part of the LTN Podcast Network, and today we're going to hear another story. Hey friends, Jamie Harris here, back with another season of Satellite Stories. Today we're going to be hanging out with my dear friend Jerry Crane III. Jerry is the director of Christian Influence and is bringing us a beautiful satellite story about how one of the members of his community engaged in video games and Discord and encountered the beautiful redeeming love of Jesus Christ. Can't wait for you to hear it. Jerry, so good to be here with you, man. So great to have you on the Satellite Stories podcast. Hey, we're going to talk about some cool stuff today, some impacted lives. And before we do that, tell me about Jerry. Tell me about this awesome thing called Christian Influence. Just give me a little backstory.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Thank you for letting me be here. It's going to be a blast. I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, my name is Jerry Crane. I am the director and a digital missionary for a ministry called Christian Influence. We are primarily an online ministry. I say primarily, I mean, we really don't do anything in person. But so, we're only an online ministry. We started as being like originally being a Discord community that was kind of the center of community for our game servers, because originally the guy that started it, he was noticing that all of his Bible students were playing video games, and so he started running Minecraft servers and Ark servers and things like that. And so what we do now, though, is we're mostly a ministry dedicated to bringing Jesus into internet culture. So because games are often online, and then there's all these other things online, we started realizing that we want to see Jesus invade the internet, and so that involves making Christian content, primarily having this Christian community where people are gathered, and we're doing online events, and so video games is a pretty big part of it, but we've got all this other stuff too, like content and community events, and we do Bible studies and stuff like that online. So cool. That's a brief kind of overview.
Yeah. I think for any of us that are part of ministries, we could talk about them for hours, but we tried really hard to get it down to like a 1 minute spiel. That was pretty good. I give it a solid like 9.5 out of 10.
Whoa, dude! All right, I have a hard time being brief. So
no, that's good. But so I like to do this. I did not tell you I was going to do this, but because it's on purpose. So if you were to explain what you do without using the word Discord, which I'll even explain for some that don't know what Discord is. If you were to explain what you do without using video games at all, without using the word Ark, without using server, is there a way to do that? If somebody's like, I don't want to hear about video games at all, but tell me what it is you do. How would you go with that?
Oh, good question. The way I describe what Discord is to people that have no concept of it, I usually, because most people know what Facebook is, I'll say like, imagine a Facebook group, to describe what a Discord server is. Like, imagine a Facebook group that's kind of more forum-like, and that's the best way I can usually describe it. And people go like, oh, okay, I kind of get that. But what I would say that what we do is we are cultivating a community online, and everybody has some experience with some social media. So if I'm not going to use with Discord, then I would just say like, pick your favorite social media. We're using a social media to cultivate a community, and then we are running events and doing outreach in various popular online mediums to reach people, and then we're bringing them into community, because we want to demonstrate that people, whether they're believers or not, should be in a community that is positively influencing them. And from a Christian perspective, that means pushing them to Jesus, right? So that would be my best, without including video games, without including the name Discord. That'd be my best description.
That's cool. I really like when talking about Discord, like imagine a social media platform that actually makes sense to use. I tease because it's actually, Discord is in a lot of ways a social media, and a way that I like the idea of the Facebook group analogy. Like a lot of times social media is like, let me post what I am doing so all of you can look at what I am doing, and then you post what you are doing and I look at what you're doing. Discord is a platform that is really about us. It's about everyone. It's a very inclusive platform that I think it's a really great tool for kind of making it so everyone has a voice and can have certain ways to talk. So I don't know that in the Satellite Stories podcast, any of our stories yet have related too much to Discord. So I'm excited to pardon me, I'm excited to chat about that a little bit and to hear
Sure,
more
yeah.
about it. But let me do this. Let me ask you now, just who is Jerry? Who's Jerry? What is, I know Jerry's got some cool, some cool changes in his life over the last couple of years, but yeah,
Oh,
tell me
yeah.
about you, man.
Yeah, so I am Jerry Crane the third. I'm a third. I will mention that. My dad is from Georgia, and my mom is from out here in Oregon. And my dad moved here after meeting her in college, and we grew up in Salem. I have four younger siblings. I am a youth pastor at my church. I've been doing that for almost a year. I love it. It's really hard not to love it. It's one of the most rewarding things I've had the opportunity to get to do. Second to being a husband, probably, and
Okay.
being a father recently. That's what you're mentioning, right? I in the last few years have gotten married, and we just had a son a few months ago. His name is Roran. It's kind of a unique name, Roran, Roran. Maybe somebody out there listening to it will get the reference. We'll see.
What is the reference? Well, now you can't say it now. I mean, it's kind
Oh,
of, now I'm
you,
going to
you got to
Google
be
it.
in the know. You got to be in the
Yeah.
know. You got to be in the know.
I'm
No,
going to look it up.
it's a reference to a fantasy series. My
Cool.
favorite fantasy series. He's the best character in that series for sure. It's a series called The Inheritance Cycle.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. But
Okay. Now I'm looking it
Roran
up.
is like, yeah, do it. Yeah, Roran is like he's the cousin to the main character,
Okay.
and
First
he
thing I saw that
is
comes up is Roran is a jerk.
what?
I don't know.
No, no, no. That's ridiculous.
Maybe it's a different
No,
Roran. Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. He's
Cousin
kind
of
of a jerk.
Aragon?
Yep, cousin of Aragon.
Yep. Somebody out there on the
Somebody
internet
thinks
thinks
he's
he's
a
a
jerk?
jerk. Yeah, dude.
No way. He is like a dedicated warrior, and he's dedicated to his wife. Like everything he does is out of love for his
Wow,
wife.
what a
It's such
jerk.
good story.
What a
I know,
jerk.
right?
Yeah.
Dude, he goes to the ends of the earth. Dude, no way. Not a
Yeah.
jerk at all.
It's
No,
funny.
my son's name is kind of themed around warrior, actually. Like his first name is Roran from that series. Roran is like this dedicated warrior, and then his middle name is Uriah from the Bible, right? Uriah the Hittite. And it's a sad story. I know
Yeah.
with Uriah. He's the the first husband of Bathsheba. But in that story, Uriah is this dedicated warrior to his king, right? Dedicated to his king. So, and we like the way
That's
the name
cool.
sounds.
Yeah. What's funny is I did look at the comments. It's a Reddit post, and the first
Yeah.
person is like, "Hey, don't you think that it's actually perfectly blah blah blah?" Everyone seems to disagree with the poster. So Roran
Oh
is
yeah.
indeed not a
100%.
jerk, and you've done
That
a
guy
good
has
job
not
naming
read
your
the books.
child. Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I think that's another thing that's there are people in life that name their kids off of after football stars and
Sure.
celebrities and stuff. It's like a world that we enjoy digesting is the fantasy world, and obviously
Yeah.
scripture. And so you said Uriah is what? Uriah's
It's his middle
his
name.
middle name.
My
Okay,
son's
that's
middle
what I thought.
name,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
But
So then,
that's yeah.
yeah, so there's like equal compare. There's like
Yeah.
Uriah. I love that. So to me, it's like. Yeah, that's how we are. Like, I think people need to know, like, yes, we definitely love Jesus. We really like nerd culture. We really like
Yeah, I do.
video
Yeah.
games. We really like fantasy. So that's pretty rad. Thanks, Jerry. I love learning more about you two. We've been friends. We've known each other for a while now. When I was a youth pastor, I used to speak at chapel at the school you went
Mhm.
to, which is where Christian Influence really started, was in that school.
Yeah.
So we had been in some similar circles and rubbed shoulders. One of my students, I think you grew up alongside of him
Yeah.
for how many years? Did you guys grow up all through school together? Or
You talking about Austin?
yeah, yeah.
So I only went to that school for are we saying the name of the school?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
okay,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
I went to Willamette Valley Christian School for high school,
Okay.
so I only knew him for a few years because
Okay.
he was yeah, he was in like eighth grade, I think, when I was a sophomore, something like that. So
Okay.
I knew him for a little while. But yeah, we were friends in the way that like most students there are all friends, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
weren't super close. But I actually just saw him the other day. I went and
Oh,
toured
rad.
his podcast studio, and yeah, he's great guy.
That's cool. I love Austin.
Love him. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome, man. I love him dearly, and it's cool to see to be be able to be a fly on the wall. My daughter actually, she's 5 now, and she goes to Willamette Valley Christian. She goes to this is going to be a WVCS podcast now.
Really?
No, she goes
Great
to
school.
Willamette Valley Christian as a preschooler / kindergartner,
Great.
and yeah, so to to move on from there, Jerry, you grow up
Yeah,
Christian school. You eventually COVID hits. You
sure.
need your Bible teacher really is what it was, right? He wants a way to connect with his students, or what role did he play at that point?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled until high school, and then I went there in high school. And Matt Canary was actually not the Bible teacher there while I was there.
Oh,
So
okay,
I had a guy named Marco Garvey
okay,
was
yeah,
the
Marco,
Bible
yeah, yeah,
teacher. Yeah, great, great. I love Marco. But yeah, Matt showed up as the Bible teacher at Willamette Valley Christian School right after I graduated. So
okay.
we really got to know each other because he was my sibling's Bible teacher.
Oh, cool, cool,
And yeah, while he was teaching during COVID, his students were
yeah,
like playing video games, and that's kind of where that came out of. He's like, okay, this is where kids are at.
yeah.
If we're gonna influence them, for Jesus, then kind of got to go there.
Yeah.
So
And if I skip the step just for those listening,
sure.
Matt ended up being the one who founded Christian Influence, started that
Yeah.
idea, and eventually, as someone who's a little bit ahead of us in life seasons, he ended up handing off the directorship to the ministry, the day-to-day operations to
Mm.
you. So
Right.
now you're doing that. Now, as you're doing that, getting into video game ministry, one thing that I have said pretty often is there are in the early years of video game ministry, getting anybody to do it was really, really hard. It was like
Mm.
people would do it as like a one-off event for like a youth night, but it's like
Right.
every youth group had dodgeball, every youth group had basketball, every youth group, had different things. But like video games as as the primary tool for ministry was kind of unheard of. There were some streamers, there was other stuff going on. But eventually, like COVID hit, right? And then suddenly everyone's like, this has to happen. This has
Yeah.
to happen. And it was also the era of Fortnite. So holy cow,
Yeah.
that was crazy. And this ministry starts up that is doing video game servers. So we're
Mm.
going to get ready to get into the meat of the subject, which is really hearing a story of impact. The
Sure.
whole Satellite Stories podcast is about acknowledging and helping people that are people of faith that play games, that don't play games, and even people that just want to hear about the good that can come from games. Like there's really cool stuff that can happen in video games. So we're going to get into that, but I think there's a little bit of groundwork that we need to lay. In your introduction, you mentioned this idea of video game servers. You mentioned Minecraft servers, Arc servers. Let's explain like when I hear a server, I just think like digital computer stuff. I know what it means, but if I'm not a gamer,
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? So let's look at like COVID happens, Christian Influence picks up some steam, and you guys are making servers. What does that
Mm.
even mean to somebody that like try to explain it in a way that like I understand nothing about video games? How would you start explaining that?
Sure, yeah, and it's great because I kind of have a rudimentary understanding of it. The server stuff is not the stuff that I do a lot of, like the nitty gritty working the computer. So my understanding is kind of this,
Yeah,
like
good.
around in that way. So yeah, when you're playing a video game, if it's an online video game that allows you to play with other players, a lot of times you need a place where that data and the ability to connect to that place to play online is located, and usually that involves physical computer hardware. And some games allow that for players, out there to host right on their own hardware a place to connect where people can access that game and play it together.
And who can
And
access that? It's specifically the people that you invite to it, right? Or
sure, yeah.
it's
So
yeah.
some of our game servers are publicly hosted or publicly listed, excuse me. So like on some websites out there where you might find, like, let's say you play Minecraft and you're like, I want to find a Minecraft server. There are websites you can go to where you can say like, hey, I want to play Minecraft, and people publicly list like, come play with us.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our servers are listed that way, and they'll say like the Christian Influence Minecraft server, right? Things
Cool.
like that. Um, but yeah, for the most part, if people get involved in our Discord community, they'll see what games we are hosting servers in, and then through that Discord community, they can get the address or the link right in order to get to those game servers. But yeah, the people playing on them are the people that play those games already and are looking for a server to play on. Often
Yeah.
they find us because they're looking for a Christian server to play on, but not always.
Okay.
And you get some cool stories out of that.
So not always. What does that mean? Does that mean somebody that's like
Yeah.
an atheist or a Wiccan could just like stumble across
Sure.
your server?
Satanist, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, some of them. So that the game I mentioned a little bit earlier, Ark. actually is a great example of it, because that game has a really dedicated following, but there's kind of just a shorter list than other games of publicly available servers.
And of quality servers, right? Because like,
and that's the big
it's
thing.
kind of like I like to explain Discord sometimes like a community park. Like you can go to the park, and hang out. It like Satellite Gaming. The way I explain our Discord is it just so happens that it's not a Christian park, but it's a park that's owned by Christians. So some of the rules you're going to see on the fence before you walk in are going to be things that accent Christ-like values. And the staff that oversee that are going to be Christians and missionally aligned with us. But you might have somebody spray paint the slide, and that's okay. We're not going to send them to jail, but we might teach them the stewardship, and we might encourage them to help us clean it up. But the same goes for like
great way of explaining it.
Yeah. Your like ARC servers, for example, they're like a public place, but people are going to know like, hey, this on purpose is a Christian server. Do you find that, and I know the answer to these things, but I want to help other people here. Do you find that if somebody just wants a quality, like let's take this game ARC, okay? To explain it in simplest terms, you're collecting dinosaurs, you're surviving in the wilderness, okay? You're building bases. Let's not get too much deeper than that. But people find joy in these like simulator games. And in this world, you're going to bump into other people.
Right.
But there's a chance that if you join a server, it's not very good quality. The moderation isn't good. There's really weird rule sets. Maybe the hardware isn't great, so the server's disconnecting all the time. Part of what you guys do is provide just a quality server so that if I'm, let's say, a Satanist, let's go to the most extreme thing. Let's say I'm a Satanist and I stumble across this ARC server that says Christian on it, but it has really good reviews. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need a good server to play on. Because of how well the server is run, because you guys seek this excellence, I might, as a Satanist, tolerate the whole Christian theme, right?
Absolutely.
And that's part of the mission in and of itself, isn't it? Like to create a space where like, hey, yes, it is Christian, but like it's also going to be a really good server. And that is contrary to how some Christian content is made. It's almost like because we're Christians, people will tolerate like crappy quality. You guys kind of have that opposite mindset, right? So
I'd say not to interrupt you, sorry.
No,
but
speak to that. Yeah, speak to that. Let me hear.
Yeah, there's something that my grandfather said that I love, and I try often to remember this in ministry. He said do what's right and do it well, right? So like, and I love that saying because it's like I think it demonstrates to us as believers that like, yeah, go and be commission minded, right? Go and do missions and do ministry and do it to the best of your ability. Because why? Well, you're doing this for the Lord, right? You're doing this for the one that has given you anything and everything you've ever had. And why would you not give him all that you are, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a big part of what we're trying to do. If we're providing servers, what is within our means? Sure, right? Like, so what hardware is within our means? And so what are we able to acquire? And then doing the best we can with it. So we've got a lot of volunteers that do what you talked about earlier, that moderation. What they do is like solving issues on the servers for people. And you're definitely right in saying, there's a lot of publicly available servers, but not all of them are quality. Yeah. And I think that is so when you're on ARC, that game we're talking about, for example, and you look at the publicly listed servers, we have quite a few of them there. But yeah, they're some of the most populated and consistently used servers in ARC. And so people see that, and that attracts them to our servers, right? Because it demonstrates that, people are enjoying it.
When I look it up, would I see Christian influence server? Is that what it's called? Okay, cool.
Yep, it's called the Christian It's just all of our stuff says Christian influence so that, for a few reasons, so that people can associate it with our Discord if they're coming from there. But also, like, yeah, that's just what it's on all our stuff.
You and I have had a lot of talks about that. I think that like that's one reason I think we're both excited that the other exists. We are almost exclusively in person, and our online stuff exists to serve those that we've met in person, whereas you are almost exclusively online, but like you'll do stuff like come help out Satellite Gaming events, and you guys get in person to record your D&D podcast, which is pretty cool. So it's like a 90-10, you know what I mean? But also what is 90-10? Maybe not 90-10. This is maybe more like 70-30 for us. Is 70% of what we do is not actually branded with Christian themes. And it's all Christian stuff, but when we work with the public school, it's not branded with Christian. And I would say, like, for you guys, that's very purposefully your mission moving forward is like, we are going to put that on there, and we're going to understand that, like, but we're going to make our servers so good that people are going to tolerate the Christian stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of reason we're laying this foundation, having this conversation is that's kind of the story that you're going to share today is someone that tolerated Jesus, that tolerated the Christian jargon so that they can enjoy a good, healthy gaming experience. So this is the part where if there's any other foundation you want to lay for this story, any other, because you're going to, in video game industry, one thing I've realized is if I share a story about a football game, and I share that, like, hey, there was a student who was always riding the bench, who was always sitting on the bench and didn't feel valued and got to play 1 minute at the last game of a football game and he got an interception. Wow. I used riding the bench. I used interception. People know what those terms mean, but those are pretty deep, like, rules for a football game. Most people would know what that is. But when I say Discord or Arc or server, people are like, I don't get it. So it's really hard for us. This is another reason we have this podcast is it's hard for us as gamers to help non-gamers understand the beautiful impact of these, of what it is that we're doing. I can say interception and people are like, oh yeah, he caught the ball away from the other team, so he was celebrated. But I can say 360 no scope and people be like, what is that? But you as a gamer, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's a trick shot in a first-person shooter. And people are like, what's a trick shot? What's a first-person shooter? What's a 360 no-scope? It's so much context. So that said, before we get into the story, is there any other context you think that needs to be laid? And the only time I think I'll interrupt you is either to celebrate how awesome what you're saying is, or to help give more context, because I really want people that don't understand video games to really capture the heart of what it is you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of necessarily more context.
Cool.
Other than, if I didn't make it clear, our Discord server, that community online, is really the hub of our ministry. So, like, that's where the ministry happens. That is where our goal is to get people into that community, because we believe that people online want community, they need community, but often they are what we call terminally online. They're online, that's where they're getting all their community if they're getting it. And so we want to be a Christ-centered, good community there. So, our ministry is really online community focused, and video games is kind of an arm of it that brings people into that community. So is content and other things. So if I hadn't made that clear, then I would clarify that just to say that now, because that is a big part of this.
Yeah.
Big part of
so it being a hub, what I would say is, like, you might have a Minecraft server, an Arc server, whatever, all these other servers, but everyone playing all those games, whether they play Minecraft, Arc, or some other game, they all are invited to this Discord server. And this is where they're going to hear, they're going to get invited to weekly Bible studies. They're going to see devotionals. Exactly, there's going to be theological conversation, apologetical conversations. This Discord is kind of so it's like a funnel. Like, you join a server, you join a video game server, you join the Christian Influence Discord. Okay, cool. So I'm excited for this story. I've heard it before. But tell us, man, this is when we say satellite stories, what we mean is these are stories of ministry impact where Jesus, video games, and a human life, they just kind of, they intersected at one spot. And these are from Satellite and Beyond. So, Jerry, give us your satellite story, my friend.
Yeah, so like you said, feel free to interrupt. But I had been working, this is a few years ago, I had been working on a volunteer basis with Christian Influence. And I was working with my dad at the time. He owns a company, a catering company, and we were doing kettle
Dude, his
corn.
food is so good. I have to interrupt you already.
No,
his
go for it.
Food is so good. We are not getting into that. That, was it chicken cordon bleu? Like,
I'm glad you liked it, man.
Whew. Okay, continue. Now I'm salivating. You can't do that, Jerry. Come on. We're trying to get started here.
I'll tell him you said that. I'll tell him you said that. So I worked with my dad growing up basically my whole life, but I don't anymore. And I was kind of trying to do both. I was working for my dad, and I was doing Christian Influence on the side, volunteer. And at that time, we were running Arc servers, and we talked about this dinosaur survival game. And we had a Minecraft server. We actually had a couple, and we had a couple other servers in other games, like Conan Exiles, which is kind of like this. It's very similar to Ark, but it's not dinosaur themed. It's the old Conan stories themed. But we had a few of these game servers, and that was kind of the bread and butter of what we were doing, was providing these quality servers online for people to find, like we talked about, and then play, and then they would get integrated into our community. Also, we had a few streamers that were streaming online, called Christian influence streamers, right? And they were funneling people into our Discord. I was one of them. That's actually how I first got involved at Christian Influence, was because I'd started streaming, and Matt saw that, and then he was like, "Hey, why don't you be a Christian influence streamer?" So we had these different means of getting people into our community, and we had one podcast, our talk show podcast. So that was kind of those were kind of the branches to Christian influence, and then that hub, right? And early on in our Arc server days, there was a girl, her screen name was Gothica Panda, and she had gotten involved in our Arc servers, and she was playing very consistently. And as she started playing, that game, there's something in that game called Tribes, and you play with other people. You can play it on your own, but if you're playing on an online server, you kind of want to play with other people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah.
play a single player game. And the tribes in that game really matter, because that drives a lot of your success in the game, going and conquering these boss fights and things like that.
And we have other
Well,
tribes that like fight against each other.
yeah, well,
Okay,
they
okay,
kind of compete for
okay, cool,
regions, and you can fight against each other and stuff. I actually don't really play the game, but I've played it a little bit.
cool. Same,
My
same.
wife and I, yeah, my wife and I have been playing a different survival game lately, but Pal World, I'll just say it. It's so
Ooh,
fun.
yes, yes, good.
Pal World's so fun.
So cool.
But yeah, so we've been, we've got these servers, and this girl, she starts playing, and she, when we were talking about those examples of like the types of people that could come to Christian influence and play on our servers, she is an outspoken Satanist. So if you look at her profile, that was listed very explicitly, like, I am a Satanist, like all of that, and there was a bunch of stuff, kind of some of the symptoms of that culture were pretty present in her online profile. But for the longest time, we don't know that, and that's fine. It's not like we're not policing those things. Like, are you a Christian? You can't play if you're not a Christian, right?
Yeah.
So she's playing, and come to find out, she joins a tribe of other players that are kind of in her area, and she makes friends with them, right? And they're playing consistently, and we have some automated messages in those game servers that say, "Hey, if you're enjoying our servers and you want to get more involved in our community, check out our Discord server." And eventually she joins it so that she can play more, right, with these people that she's playing with in her tribe, and she can talk to them
Yeah,
in voice
some
calls.
context here is, so
Yeah, yeah.
if she's in the game and other people are playing the game, she can talk to
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
But if she's like at work and she's like, "Is
Mhm.
anybody gonna play tonight?" She
There you
can't
go,
do that
yeah.
in the game, but she can send a message on her phone in Discord and say, "Hey, is anybody gonna play tonight?" So
Exactly.
there is technical advantages to getting in the Discord. Which again, if she's willing to tolerate the Christian theme, which the server's good enough, creating enough community, she'll be like, "All right, I'll get in there and talk to these Christian people."
Exactly.
So I try to picture her going like, "Ugh, I want to see if these Christian weirdos are playing tonight," and that's so cool. Anyway, continue.
Yeah,
This is
and
good.
I don't know. I actually don't know if I don't know how she felt about. I should ask her. That's a
Yeah,
great question.
yeah.
How she felt about joining a explicitly Christian community,
Was it
and
painful,
if
tolerable? Was it
yeah,
moot?
was it like, did she feel that way? Did she feel like, I'll tolerate this because of the quality of the content? That's a great question. But yeah, so she joins our Discord server, and she's playing pretty consistently with this group of people. Now, in talking to her, and looking back at this story, she's told me that a big part of her kind of I don't know if disdain or like just the reason she didn't like Christians and Christianity was because of experiences she had with previous Christians, and feeling as though like she had all these presuppositions or all these assumptions in her head that Christians are this, Christians are
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
they're pompous, they're jerks, blah, 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 right? Well, she's playing on this server and playing this game with these friends that she's made, and she finds out that they're believers, and she's like, "Man, you guys are Christians? Like, you guys are awesome, and I kind of love you guys,
Yeah.
and I've grown to appreciate you. You've grown to be my friends, and like, I guess I was wrong about who Christians really are. Like, I had this idea in my head that they're whatever, right? But you guys are Christians, and you're pretty cool, and you're kind, and I enjoy talking to you." And my understanding is that through that interaction with these believers, it caused her to go, well, then maybe if I had the wrong idea about who these people are, maybe I have the wrong idea about what they believe. And so Now, though, at this point, right, she's in our Discord community. And so she is being influenced, right? We have other things other than just theological conversations. Like we have places for that, but we have places for memes.
Yeah, we can
we have places
take a
for
picture of
other
your
things.
cat. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Places for like, because like we recognize that people online, they want community. And so they want to hang out and talk about the things they're interested in, whether it's their books or their hobbies and all that stuff. So she had been kind of getting involved in those things, talking about, books that she enjoyed and things like that. And she loved to share, pictures of her pets. She's got bunny rabbits and stuff, and she had conversations with people in the community about that. So she's kind of present there now. And the great thing is we have, like you said, though, we do have places to have theological conversations, questions about the Bible. We have Bible studies weekly, and we have regular prayer gatherings for, that people can get involved in multiple times a week. And so with those things available, as she's started to trust this community, and she's trusting it because of playing games with these people, she starts asking questions like, hey, I had this misunderstanding about the Bible. What does it really mean? Like, hey, I thought that this was the gospel. What really is the gospel? And asking questions of people like myself and Matt, who we talked about earlier, who is a skilled Bible teacher. He's been doing this for a long time, so he would sit there and answer her questions. And so the really cool thing for me, this is kind of where I got involved in it, was I had seen her in the community for a little while, talking about her pets, talking about ARC, right? That's kind of the only interaction I had with her. But then actually, no, I had that interaction. I had a couple interactions where I was like, as a moderator, like there's some content every now and then that I'm a little nervous about. And so we had some moderators.
I actually want to talk about that because it's like, okay, because this is an important thing. It's kind of like, okay, let's talk church context. Okay. There are kind of two extremes in a youth group. You have the youth groups that it's like, man, is this even like church? Like there's kids over here like smoking in the back. They're like, like fights are starting up, like people are stealing stuff. But then you see the gospel message and you're like, whoa, this is probably the only time these kids experience Jesus. Yeah. And then that's one extreme, right? And then the other extreme is it's full of Awana kids, and the one kid who doesn't love Jesus comes and he's judged the whole time and feels like he doesn't. But then you realize but these kids are going to be like the next Billy Grahams because of how deeply they know scripture, right? So you're like, whoa, like there's these extremes. So at what point, like if you're at youth group and someone says a swear word, maybe not the worst of words, but says a swear, do you correct it? If someone makes a dirty joke, depending on how bad it is, do you correct it? And like, these are decisions we're making as people that host Discord servers and video game servers. Like, where do you draw the line on that? And how do you draw the line? And it's what you're saying is like, it's case by case thinking about it and going like, man, cause if I tell her, hey, we can't have those jokes on there and I don't do it in the right way, now I am everything she sees about like Christians being judgmental. Right. And now, but it's like, but I also want to make this a space where Christians feel like they can come and get away from all that nasty stuff in the world. Right. So it's just this constant balance, maybe because I think it's relevant to this individual who's like, I'm a Satanist. Like, what is that? How do you measure that? How do you make those decisions? And
it's really tough. Yeah. We're still figuring it out. We just had a conversation as a moderation community. This is, we're years after her initial interactions with us. Just the other day, I had some conversations with our moderators about like certain things that people are saying and like how do we monitor that, right? It's kind of always changing, or at least adapting and growing. And it is very case by case. We have a pretty extensive list of rules for our community, which is pretty typical. The culture at Discord,
even non-Christian servers will have
exactly
that.
Yeah.
Which is good.
The culture around Discord is like, hey, if you're going to hang out in our community because it's our community, we started it, this is what we'll allow, right? And it goes, even things that are far, far from being Christian, they'll have rules. Some of them will be like, don't mention religion, right? That's great. Yeah. Like if you're there, abide by their rules. And so we kind of will often say that to people, I think, if they are, because I think specifically when they have that reaction, the reaction that is like, oh, you're Christians, that's why you won't let me do this. And I'm like, well, if you were in a Pokemon server and they said, hey, there's a lot of kids here because it's a Pokemon server, can you please not use the F word? Like, would you look at them and say, hey, you're just saying that because you're a Christian, right? It's like, it is kind of cultural. The culture on Discord is like, they have rules. And so for us, because we are Christians.
And you have to check those rules before you get in, right? So
it's
almost a cool way to tell people on their way in the door, hey, here are our values. And if you're
Yes.
coming in this space, you're acknowledging you will honor those. So it's kind of a cool way to say like, hey, we're going to be like this dude named Jesus who walked the earth
Yep.
2,000 years ago. We happen to think he was God in the flesh. You may not
Hmm.
believe that, but we're going to use him as a point of reference for how we want to treat people.
Yeah. And
And
we're telling
yeah,
people as they come in, like, we want you here. We want you to be here, and we will be patient with you, right? There's
yeah,
plenty of opportunities. We have to be patient with people. But we do say, like, if you want to be here too, yeah, we have some rules and we ask that you abide by them. But you're going to get warned too.
yeah,
Like, if you break a rule, we're not just like, ban,
yeah.
like, we're going to spend some time being patient
Get
and talk to you.
baptized right now or we're kicking you out. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
No.
this is my final question. Then we'll get back to the story. On a
Sure.
scale of like Satanist to pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of people are like somewhere in the middle or are pastor? Like I imagine she represents like the less than 1% at this point, right? Like
That are
Satanists.
showing up in our server.
Yeah. Yeah. That is like, because I imagine there's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
non-Christians, right? But like,
Oh yeah, lots.
but this extreme might be bigger than we might think. But like, where do you think if you were to break it up into a pie chart, like what would that look like? You think?
Yeah, I'd say that, like, we're at about 60% to 65% believers,
Cool.
and at various levels of dedication to that, right? Like how outspoken they are. Sometimes you find that out just through talking to them. It's maybe not on their profile, which is fine, but a lot of them, it is. And then 35% unbelievers. And then if I were to, like, break it up into smaller pieces, then yeah, like there's a part of that that's clearly really dedicated believers, some that are kind of in a place of maybe transition or not really know where they belong in that, and we're discipling them, right? And then there's the kind of middle ground atheist. It's like, or maybe agnostic, right? Like, I don't really care. And then there's the Satanist. So
Yeah.
if I broke it down to that, I'd say probably like 10%
Okay. That's
is
actually,
the is it yeah, it's higher than what you were
yeah,
saying.
that's
Like,
cool.
I think
I think that's
10% is
great.
the, like, I am not. Yeah,
Maybe
let's say
even
10%.
opposed to
Yeah,
Christianity in
yeah.
some way. They may not take the term Satanist, but like maybe 10% of the people in your server are like, hey, I'm here for the good because you run good servers. Like,
Yeah, that might be a little high. It's probably
okay.
closer to 5%.
Okay.
It's
But
probably closer to
either way,
5%.
that's
I did the
beautiful.
math. I did the math on our total users, and I was like, that sounds like a lot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
probably 5% is about, like, hey, I'm against this. I don't agree, but I'm here.
That's
And
awesome.
then and she was in that 5%, and then the rest of them are just, they're there because they want to use the services, they want the community,
Yeah.
whatever. And then that the group that's believers, yeah, there's a lot of them in just various states of,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And do different
But
people in that pie chart of those who are believers have different, I'm going to use the word tolerance. I don't think it's a fair
yeah, yeah,
word
yeah.
because I don't think that it's about tolerance. It is, do people that are believers in your server to different degrees appreciate or not appreciate the fact that 5% is allowed to be there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's interesting. I've said this before. Like, I have a harder time. Uh,
I know what you're going to
I have
say.
yeah, dude. I struggle way more, I think, with those believers that are like, you shouldn't allow this person to be here, they're too far gone, kick them out, than I do with the person in question, right, that they're talking
Yeah.
about. Because actually, to my own fault, what I mean is, this is one of my faults.
Right.
Like, I lose my patience more easily with the Christian that says this person is
A
going to hell
well-intended
and will never
Christian, right?
change.
Oh, going to
Well,
hell? Maybe when you said that, I was like, I
yeah,
retract
it's
my
like,
statement.
yeah, I mean, like, well, and like, I believe that they love the Lord and all that, but at the same time, they're saying, like, but because of what this person's doing, why are you even talking to them? That
Yeah.
person I lose my patience with a whole lot more than the person they're talking about.
Yeah.
Who may be, like, totally flagrant, like all these things that are really inappropriate, right? But it's like, because of the Bible, really is why. Like, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't lose my patience, but the Bible, like, saying, I'm holding you to a standard. Like, Jesus says to be compassionate and kind and patient.
Yeah.
You're not being patient right now. And then I lose my patience. So
Yeah.
I'm not in that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this, but
I love hearing the behind the scenes because I don't want people to think again, what we are doing is not just like sitting around playing games. Like, we're talking
yeah,
about lives and impacting lives.
yeah,
Every decision we make on a server, as we deal with situations, I would say, to say weekly is probably an understatement. It's probably daily that you're talking to
oh yeah,
someone about a philosophical decision for the server and for your approach to ministry. And
Oh
we
yeah.
have those conversations with each other as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love this. So again, this all contextually helps us
Yeah.
understand this person, this person, Gothic Panda, I think is what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, being in
That's her
this
screen name.
server. That's her screen name. So I can't remember exactly where we left off, but let's continue. So she's
Sure.
playing in these servers, getting connected with people, joins the Discord server. So now she can engage not only while she's playing, but while she's not playing.
Right.
As we said, maybe tolerate's not the best word, but she's
Sure.
putting
Yeah.
up with
She's
these
enjoying
Christian
it, yeah.
things, enduring it. And I like the word enduring it, around for it, shocked by the fact that, oh, you guys are actually quite loving and gracious. I may have misunderstood. Then what happens?
Yeah, I think what we kind of got sidetracked on was I had said something about like sometimes the content in her profile was an issue, and we talked about
Yeah.
moderation. And at that was kind of where I got involved because I had seen her in the community a little bit, and then there was some content like that was being linked on her profile, like to her TikTok account, and in my opinion, it wasn't appropriate. And I was like, well, okay, I'll talk to her about that, and then the moderators all kind of agreed that maybe we shouldn't. We're not going to try and police people's profiles, right? Like where they go, or like their other social medias. But that was kind of where I got involved, and it was kind of I was overstepping a little bit, and I'll admit that. Like I overstepped and said, like, "Hey, could you not link your TikTok account?" Because I went to it, and if other people go to it, like in my opinion, I don't think that in our community they should see that. And then it was like, well, we're not policing people's other social medias, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's true. We're just so to your point earlier, like how do you moderate? Like that's one of the decisions we had to come to was like
Yeah.
we don't like that's what something we consider overstepping, but we will tell people like, hey, if you're going to be in here on your profile, if it's just the F word a bunch of times, anybody could just click your profile while you're in our server and look at that. Could you remove that, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like finding that middle line. So I'll just clarify that. Like that's kind of where I got
No, that
involved.
makes
I
sense.
started having conversations with her because I was like, hey, I try and do this with anybody that joins. I just quickly look at their profile when it pops up when I click it, and I click the link, and then also there was a couple words in her about me that I was just like, hey, that's kind of inappropriate for our server. Do you mind getting rid of that? And she was like, yeah, I understand. She got rid of the words in her profile.
That's
But,
even common in non-Christian servers too. Like
yeah,
there's
yeah, it
certain
is.
words or language that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it is. And for us, it's just like we understand that there's kind of varying degrees of what's considered profanity.
Yeah.
But for the server, because we know that there are kids there, we do ask like if there's profanity in there, we just ask them to remove it.
Yeah.
And we do that like we don't allow it in the chat as well. But then, yeah, so that happened. That's where I kind of got involved, and then her and I had some conversations about why. And she had asked me like, why can't that be there? And I had explained, well, because we're a Christian server, and we want you to be here, but we don't want others to see that because we believe that it's inappropriate, right? We just had some conversations about what it means, like what is language and all that. But that really started her and I talking, and then it wasn't long after that where she had continued to be involved in the community and playing with these other Christians. And I think I'll mention this. When I asked her like, "Hey, could you remove your TikTok link on your profile?" It caused a real issue. There was some disagreement with the other moderators, and they were like, "Hey, we aren't policing that content," like I said, and that was eventually what was decided. But for her, it made her feel really hurt. And I mention this because the cool thing is now her and I are friends, and she's forgiven me for this. But it was an example of where we made a decision where like trying that difficult thing, right?
Yeah.
Where's the line to moderate? I had, gone like, I'm going to ask her to remove this, and it hurt her feelings, and it caused her to feel like, why are people, snooping around on my other social media, which isn't what I was doing. It was just like, hey, it's readily available. I'm going to click it like anybody else could.
Yeah.
But we eventually decided like, that is something that someone is deciding to do to click that and to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
It isn't.
That's
feasible for us to
that's
try
the
and moderate
internet,
that.
right? Like
That's the
you're
internet,
always
right?
one
Yeah.
click away from
Let's
something
control-
else. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's a great illustration for like in life. I think we can, as believers, be like, man, I got to try and like do everything right. And we can really only control ourselves. And sometimes we can't even do that right. But really all we can focus on controlling is our own decisions. And sometimes we try and control other people's decisions. And like with our ministry, yeah, we should be careful when it comes to liability and all that. But like we can really control our space.
Yeah,
We
that's
can't
good.
control other spaces. So yeah, that kind of caused a problem. She ended up leaving the server for a little bit, and
Wow.
that was what it broke my heart, man.
Oh,
Like
I
it broke
bet.
my heart because I was like, man, I've been praying for this girl. I've been
Oh.
seeing like, yeah, she's getting involved, and some people had kind of questioned like, should she still be here or not? And I had to tell them like, no, it's worth us continuing to pray for her, being patient, trusting that the Lord is working in her heart, even if we're not seeing it. And then I realized like, dude, I messed this up. Like she's gone,
Mm.
and it's my fault. And it's because I was being too police, like I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
too, brought the hammer down a little bit too much. And so I reached out to one of her tribe mates and just said like, hey, can you tell her that I'm sorry? I overstepped my bounds. I'd love to have a conversation with her. And so through the game, because she was still playing on our game servers, that person told her that and said like, hey, Mage, which is my online name, or Mage wants to talk to you. And we got in a call real quick. We talked, and we got into a group chat and we were text chatting for a while. And I just told her like, hey, I want you to know that like I'm a Christian and I'm not perfect and I overstepped my bounds and I need to apologize. And through that conversation,
That's so
she
cool.
ended up, yeah, it was great for me too. It was like,
Yeah.
I was
Well,
like newly into really leading things,
I
and
feel like if we don't have those moments, we are not aware of our own shortcomings. Like I feel
sure,
like
yeah,
like the fact that you're having those moments does not mean you mess up. It's like, oh, we all mess up and you're just aware of it. So to
yeah,
any ministry leader out there, like if you're not having these moments where you've got to apologize, then I'm wondering if you're just not aware of your imperfections. So
mm.
I applaud that. And thanks for sharing that here. Cause of all the
Oh
things
yeah,
you could share, to share maybe a part of this story where you messed up is very humbling. And I think it's going to encourage people as they try to share the love of Jesus with others.
oh,
So
thanks, man.
continue. I just
Yeah,
want
as
to affirm you
believers,
in that. Yeah.
thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, as believers, we believe that God will use all things for the good of those who love him. And if we're serving him, we're still going to make mistakes. And one of the beautiful ways I think that he will still use our mistakes is when we admit that they're mistakes
Yeah.
and then go to people and say like, and demonstrate like, so as a leader, as a dad or as an older brother or as a youth pastor now, like I mess up. If I tell the people there like, hey, I messed up and apologize for it, then sure, maybe they were negatively influenced when they saw me make the mistake.
Mm.
But now they're seeing, hopefully, right? They're seeing humility and
Yeah.
honesty.
I'm in need of the
And so
same
in
grace
that,
as you
God
are.
uses it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I
That's
was
good,
going for.
man.
And I was still though, like praying, like, Lord, please, I hope she comes back. If she
Oh,
doesn't though, God, like this is like she's in your hands, right? Like I don't make the decisions and I don't save her. So God, hopefully maybe it was just for a time, then she got positively influenced. I made a mistake and now she's gone. I just pray that, she keeps playing with the right people. She goes out, maybe she meets somebody else that will mentor her or whatever it is, right? She did come back to our server. And then
yeah.
after that, she got more involved. It was actually really cool. It was almost a light switch. Like within that week, I remember her just engaging with more
Mm.
conversations with people, like talking to people about things that aren't just her pets, right? Having these longer conversations with people about like hypothetical situations in life, and then started asking people for prayer. And then we're like, whoa, like what's
Yeah.
going on here, right? And then she started asking questions about the Bible. And she would ask me, and she would ask Matt. She would ask Mr. Mikey Noodles, who you're aware of. You
Oh, we
guys are
love
friends.
Mikey. Yeah.
We
We need
love
to have
Mikey,
him on
dude.
here sometime. Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Mike's got a great story. If he tells the one I'm thinking of, Mike's patience for certain people. It
It's
baffles me, and
frustrating
it
because I don't
is.
have it. I don't have that, man.
And Mike, yeah, there's a story of a kid
It's good.
that Mike, yeah, really cool story. After the
Oh,
kid
man.
left, like Mike every day, just right there with that kid. But
I'm excited to
um,
hear that. Yeah.
you should ask him. Yeah,
I will. Yeah.
but But yeah, so we were answering her questions, and then, dude, that's such an interesting thing. Somebody asks a question, and when they're a person that's like been opposed to Christ, and then they ask a question about the Bible, us as believers, I think sometimes we can be like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just go
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
in, and we
Here
got to
it
be like, whoa,
is.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just give them the answer that
Play it
they
cool.
asked for.
Play it cool.
Like, yeah, play cool, guys, play cool, play cool.
Yeah.
Like, here we go. And
Yeah.
in the background, though, the whole moderators, we have oh, okay, I'm going to reveal a secret. We have a secret channel only visible by the moderators. That's
Which
kind of
every server
where we
does, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
have one where we'll post like little moments in the server that happen where we're like victories, small
Yeah.
victories.
Yeah. Yeah.
We call it server praise, where we see someone that like says something like or what we consider like maybe this is the needle slightly moving
Hmm.
for this person. We'll put them
Yeah.
there. And I remember us putting something there where she was asking a Bible question. We put one of those link to that chat in that background channel, and all of us are like,
And you all start
you know,
praying, like, Lord,
yeah.
speak
And
to her.
dude,
Yeah.
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 But so yeah, through that, eventually what happens is she starts realizing like, yes, I had the wrong idea about these people, at least about how these people are supposed to be. And yeah, these people make mistakes, but what it means to be a Christian is to repent,
Hmm.
right? To turn away from that mistake and to have this changing of mind about that mistake, believe that it's wrong, and then go to Christ, right? And she starts to learn what that means, asking questions, coming to deeper understanding, deciding, maybe I should read a Bible. And so one of the questions, I remember exactly where I was. She asked Matt and I, hey, there's all these translations of the Bible. Which one should I get? And we don't believe in one translation above all. But we're like, well, here's some great, recommendations as you're starting to read the Bible. But we're asking she at first asked what translation is best. And we had said well, there isn't a best one. There's best maybe for certain
Do you know
contexts. What
Greek?
are you asking? Yeah, exactly. Right. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't recommend a Greek if she doesn't
Yeah.
speak Greek.
Yeah.
And she's asking, and I'm like, well, what is the purpose for it? Right. And it's like, well, because I want to get a Bible to read. And
Oh,
dude, I remember exactly where I was. Like, I'm sitting, it's kind of funny. I used to live in my dad's backyard in a shed. And long story, but
yeah.
it's very cheap
Yeah.
way to live.
Okay.
Bought a shed, just put some walls and some insulation in there, and I lived back there for like $300 a month.
Since you were
Great.
3 years old. Yeah.
No, yeah,
No,
yeah. Well, no, I
kidding.
had a
Kidding.
doghouse, but then I upgraded.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. My dad's a wonderful man. He did
Yeah.
not make me live in the backyard.
Yeah.
No, I was in my 20s and I was living back there really cheaply. And I'm sitting there at my computer that I've got in this little shed. It's so cold, and I'm looking at the computer. I'm typing on Discord, and she's like, "Well, because I want to start reading the Bible." And I was just like, "Dude." My mind goes back to the moment where I was apologizing, like, "Please, Lord, I hope she comes
Mm,
back." And God, please give me the opportunity to continue to speak into her life. But even if I
so
don't,
good.
God, I trust you, right? And I'm sitting there like, oh, here we go, right? Like, this is so cool. So she buys a Bible, and then she starts asking us like, hey, what's a good church? What makes a church a good church to go to? So we're talking to
Jeez.
her about, some of that kind of stuff. And I remember too where I was at work when I looked at my phone, and it was around Christmas time, and she posted a picture of like the pews or the chairs, whatever, in front of her, and the cross on the church
Oh,
wall that she was at
oh
church.
man.
And I was like, we all the moderators were like, dude, like this is a blessing. Like
Yeah. This is
it
why
is
we
an
do this,
honor.
right?
It is why we do it,
Yeah.
but it is an honor that we're seeing this. Like,
Yeah.
we believe whether we see this or not, God wants us doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
and we don't deserve to see that increase, and
Mm.
God's letting us see it, and
Yeah.
like, praise Him, man. And that was the cool. I remember standing there at work. My buddy's popping kettle corn. It's so loud, and I just look at my phone, and I'm like, dude. And I just looked. I was like, David. He's like, what? I'm like, you don't know any of the context, but this girl who was a Satanist and blah blah blah, she's at church right now. And he's like, nice, man.
That's
Like, that's
cool.
so cool.
That's so cool.
And yeah, so she started going to church, and now she is engaged to be married to a guy who's, I think he's a pastor's grandson or something, like very involved in the church. And
Jeez.
she's a regular attendee at a church in on the East Coast where she lives, and she's still around. Like, it's obviously not all been sunshine and daisies. There's been moments where like issues,
Yeah.
but we've had the opportunity to be like now she's in that stage of her Christianity where she's starting to go like, okay, like, I believe this is my faith, and it's not always easy,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we've had the opportunity to continue to pour into her life. And yeah, it's been one of those, like, there's times in this ministry, and I'm sure you've had this too, where it's like, man, am I doing this because it's what God wants me doing, or am I doing it because I'm trying to find a way to play video games or whatever?
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
actually play less video games now than I did before this
Same,
ministry.
bro. I tell people that all the time. I don't think they believe me. I'm like, no,
I don't
dude.
think people believe me
Yeah.
either, because
Yeah.
they sometimes just see clips of me streaming, and I'm like, dude, I played 2 hours. I played an hour and a half of video games to get those few clips
Yeah.
in like 1 month. Like, that's all I played. But like, I'm like, so it's stupid to think this, but I still think it. Like, am I just doing this because I want to do
Mm.
these nerdy things and I want an excuse? Or is it really what God wants? Because I committed to this because I believed it's what God wants. And then we get those moments, and I don't
Yeah.
deserve them. But God is like, hey, dude, this matters.
Yeah.
This is worth it.
Yeah.
And don't you dare tell me that I'm not using you,
Yeah.
and the other people there, because I am, right? And I'm like, all right, Lord, thank you. Like,
Ah,
and
that's
that was one of those
that's good.
moments, one of the first ones. And we were just like, and it still blows me away. It still floors me, man. Like, I'm trying not to get too emotional about it, because like, yeah, It's crazy. It's
Nah,
crazy.
you can be emotional
Praise
about it,
God.
man. It's good,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
especially around me, you know that. But
yeah. I know.
something I would say is I had a conversation. Where was I? I was in November. I was at a conference, and one of the speakers, I got a chance to speak with him, and we ended up going on a long walk together, talking. And I shared with him that like one of my prayers
Mm.
is like, Lord, let me see the fruit of the
Yeah.
labor sometimes. Like I want to see that fruit. I want to know that it's working. And he said, Jamie, that's a great prayer, but you know what a better prayer is?
Mm.
And he said, Lord, even if I don't see the fruit,
Yeah.
give me the strength to remain faithful.
Mm.
And I was like, oh,
Amen.
that's a hard prayer. That's a hard prayer. So the reason we do this podcast is so people can see the fruit and people can
Yeah.
hear the fruit and know that there are real lives being impacted and changed by the redeeming grace of Jesus Christ through
Yep.
video games, through a game like Ark, through servers on a platform like Discord, in a place called the internet, which if you have spent much time on there lately, it's pretty dark. It's pretty awful. But
Yeah.
because of ministries like Christian Influence, Salad Gaming, and Love Thy Nerd, there are
Yep.
a couple spots on the internet that are just beautiful rays of light that people can see from afar, encounter, and as they get close, hopefully we have the wisdom to navigate situations like this and show that redeeming grace of Jesus Christ. So, Jerry, I really appreciate you sharing this story, bringing it to the Sally Stories podcast. There's
Yeah, man.
so
Thank
many
you.
more things we could talk about, but it's been a great joy to do ministry with you and to
You
grow
too.
alongside of you. Before we dip here, is there any final closing thoughts? Also, is there any way how we'll make sure that we put links in
Mm.
YouTube description, podcast description? Is there
Oh, thank you.
anything we need to know about you, how we can get connected with Christian Influence, or anything else you'd like to
Sure.
share?
Yeah, I'd say just one last thing about that story.
Yeah, please.
I think it's the thing that it's something that, I believe, but I really learned through experience and what I've told people when they felt a certain way, I've used this story. You know, just being present and doing things as a Christian matters. Like those Christians were playing that video game. And that was really like if they hadn't played the game with her, kind of like what satellite gaming does, right? A lot like what you guys do. Going and just being there with those kids, playing those games with them as a Christian,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't have to be something where you're like, hi, I'm a Christian, let's play video games, right? Like, but
Yeah.
playing video games with them. And it has made me really appreciate that role, like that those people played.
Yeah.
And had they not done that, I don't know if we'd have had the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, because that part
people
wasn't
into
you. That
that.
was somebody
It
else,
wasn't
right?
me.
Just
And I love that it wasn't me, dude. I
it was
love
somebody
that it
just
wasn't me.
playing a game,
On
being
our servers
Jesus.
playing a
That's
game.
so cool.
Exactly. That gamer of peace, right?
Yeah.
Thing. Like, and yeah, I love it. So there's that. Like, go and do those things. And then, obviously there was a point in that story where they had a conversation about being Christians because she
Yeah.
came to realize these people are Christians, right? And so it was an overflow out of their life. And I love that. But the thing for me is like, there are moments where it's like, never mind, maybe this person has already made up their mind, maybe their heart is a heart of stone. Maybe they're too hardened and
You
they're
could have
too
done
far
that when
gone.
she left the server. You
Could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I would say, like, dude, if you're praying for someone, just never stop, man.
Yeah. Amen.
Like, don't give up, and remember, like, surrender them to God because, like, if it's really, I think sometimes it's easier to say, oh yeah, I'll trust the Lord with my life, but then inside, like, it's harder for us to say sometimes that we'll trust the Lord with other people's lives, because, like, especially if you're like me, and like I grew up with younger siblings, like you're controlling things, leading things, especially as leaders. Like, will we trust the Lord with the lives of those we're leading? We may, as leaders, say, yeah, I trust the Lord with my life, but I'm leading these people. It's like, no, man, God's using you to lead them. Are you going to trust the Lord to lead them? Trust the Lord with their life. And with her in that moment, there was this moment where I'm like, she's gone, and I might not get her back. I might not get another opportunity to preach into her life. It's like, but Lord, you will.
Yeah.
And I
Amen.
trust you with her life. So that's the last thing I'd say about her story. And then as far as Christian Influence, if you want to get in contact with me, you can find me if you go to our Discord, discord.gg/Christian Influence. At the top of the list where it says owner, you'll see Mage. That's me. I mean, you could email me, but or whatever, stuff like that's probably going to be in the description. And then, yeah, if you want to get involved in what Christian Influence is doing, like I said, the hub is really that Discord server. Our website It's got some info on it and stuff. That's christianinfluence.net. But really, if you want to know what Christian is and what it's about, or Christian Influence is and what it's about, check out our Discord server.
Cool. We'll make sure we have a way to get people in there. Jerry, love you, man. I look forward to hearing more stories like this in the future. And it's always a pleasure doing ministry with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us as we grow the library of satellite stories. We'll see you next time. And don't forget, Jesus loves you, nerds.